Hey, what's up everybody? It's Two. In this video, we're just gonna go over how to do tint removal. There's a few different ways to do this, but this is the way that we like to do it here at the shop. So I'm just gonna show you how we do that. So let's get around this side window and go ahead and do that. Now I've got my steam gun ready. You can get one like we have here. It's a little bit more expensive, or you can get cheaper ones like we used in McCullough, which is probably around the $150 range. Those work as well. So I've got the door panel already removed. And the first thing I'm going to do is I'm just going to put a little bit of steam just on the film itself. It's a little bit colder in the shop today, so I just want to get this a little bit warmed up. So I'm going to go ahead and use my stainless steel razor blade, and I'm just going to catch an edge of this film. Really, all I'm trying to do is just get an opening where I can start to pull. The goal when doing a removal is just to leave as little glue as possible. Now, if it was a good film, usually the glue will come with the film, and that's always the goal. It's just going to make the process a little bit easier to clean. If it leaves a lot of glue behind, you may have to come back with your stainless steel razor blade and get all the glue off, which will take a little bit more time. So the end goal is I can remove this film by taking as much glue with the film all at once. And that's why we like to use a steamer. It just softens up that glue. So we got a little bit of that film lifted off the glass. I'm gonna go ahead and just now grab a hold of my film and use my steam at the same time. And it's kind of a slow process. You wanna move a little bit slower. By moving slower, you're given that time for the glue to soften up. So you're both gonna be steaming at the same time you're gonna be peeling back. Now, if this is an old tint or a cheap quality tint, it can definitely break in small pieces, which becomes a lot more work. So we try to avoid having more work by just being a little bit more patient with how we pull. Now, when I get to this corner area here on these sides, I'm going to use a lot more steam here, and I'm going to be extra patient on the sides here. Reason being is I don't want this film to break away and slice itself off and leave tint behind this gasket. That's just gonna make the cleaning really hard. There's not much room for you to clean on the sides here. So being a little bit more patient here is really key. If I had glue in the middle, I can always come back with my stainless steel razor blade, and I can do the same on this side as well, but it's just a little bit more work. So in order to avoid leaving glue in the area that's hard to reach, I'm just going to be a little bit more patient. And I'm going to pull my tint away in this direction, but I'm going to be patient with my steam. Now another thing too, if I run my nail on my glass here, if there's still glue left over, I would be scoring that glue and you'd see that the glue's still there. Here, we can see that I've been able to pull my tint off by using the steam and not leaving any residue behind, which that's the ideal way to go. Now, it's not gonna always be that way because we don't know what kind of film comes into the shop, especially if we're not the ones that tinted this before. In this case, it's a client that wanted to go a little bit darker. So we know the film, it's our film. But if it wasn't, I may not know, and I may not get results this clean. Now I'm just gonna quick show you, if you were to pull this, which you certainly can, let's say I was gonna pull this without my steamer. You can see, I don't know if you can see this in the camera, but it leaves glue behind right here. And like I was saying earlier, if you run your nail across the glass, now I can see that there's glue left behind. And that's gonna be something that I have to come clean up with my razor blade. Once again, when I'm coming up to a corner area like this is the part where I will let steam sit just a little bit longer. One thing I like to do as well is I turn this film over around my steamer. it kind of traps that steam to just kind of settle and chill inside this little pocket here. It kind of helps. It just keeps the heat contained. I'm gonna roll the rest of my window up here. Okay, so we pretty much got our film off now, but we do have some glue left over. So I'm just gonna show you now how you would double check that you have no glue left over. Obviously, I knew that I left some a little bit on purpose, but I do have a few more areas I can notice here where there is some glue left. So what I'm gonna do is I'm just gonna grab my stainless steel razor blade now and my slip solution. So I'm gonna go ahead and just apply my slip on here. And I do wanna make sure that I clean these real well. One thing that was an issue for me when I was new is sometimes I would remove my tint, I would clean everything, and I would think that I did a really good job. And I would do a decent job. I'd get 98% of the glue off and the glass pretty much be ready to install. But then I would go through the whole install, and eventually when my tint was done, I'd go back and inspect for contaminants, and I would find that I left some glue. So cleaning is really key. You do want to be more patient. Just make sure you get it done right so that when you do go to install, you're not having to peel that tint off and clean again. It's just going to be something that frustrates you and may affect your entire job. So I'm just going to run my stainless steel razor blade. And as you can see here, I still have a decent amount of glue that's there. So there's a few ways you do this. Obviously, I can visually look at the glue, which is the first way I'm going to make sure that there is still glue there. But also I can feel it through my fingers because it kind of reverberates through the blade. So I can kind of tell if there's glue by feeling as well, listening and watching. So I'm going to just run my blade across this entire glass, and I just make sure that it overlaps nicely 50-50. It's just like mowing the lawn. You don't really want to miss any area of the glass. So I just run my blade. Like I said, I'm listening, I'm feeling, and I'm also visually looking. You may use more than 1, 2, even 3 blades when doing this. Obviously, the cleaner the blade, the newer the blade, and the sharper it is, the easier the cleanup is going to be. So once I'm here, I've done the entire glass, but I always like to go over a second time. As I said, you don't want to leave anything behind and then have to come back and clean up something that you missed. So one thing I notice a lot of times too is sometimes we'll get cars that we have to redo or we have to install tint, and you might get a client that comes in and tells you the car's never been tinted. They just picked it up from the dealership. A lot of times we find out that those cars actually have been tinted prior, but the dealership took it off. Now the dealerships are not window tinters. They're going to remove the tint, and they're going to do a decent job, but they're going to still leave glue behind. In the areas where they're going to leave glue behind, it's always going to be this corner. So I'll have you flip on this side. Like I said earlier, a lot of times, if you don't do this all the time, you're going to be less mindful of the areas here. And the way you do that, to clean that and to double check as a tinter, is just pull out more blades. And you're going to want to get this kind of torqued so that it's nice and flush, so it has full contact. And then just run it down the glass. You'll do this a few times just to ensure that there is no glue left behind. And like I said, if it comes not tinted, sometimes you'll find out that actually the car was tinted and it's just in the removal process. If it was done, for example, by dealership, they're not going to be tedious to go find these little areas that might still have glue, and that ends up giving you problems because you have to do that tint all over again. So when I'm cleaning, it's obviously everything that I can see front center, and then obviously what's kind of hidden behind the gasket as well. So that's pretty much how you remove tint on a side window. And then the last thing you'll want to do is, I always like to just step to the outside of the glass, and I'm going to visually inspect, especially the areas that are in here. So I'll check this, make sure there's no glue left. I'll make sure there's no glue left here. If I'm the one that's going to be tinting this car next, then I should know where the glue is gone. But what I like to do is when I go to the install, I treat it like it's a brand new car, meaning I pretty much eliminate everything that I've just done here out of my mind, and I start like a new tinter. That's going to make me clean my glass again. And I know we're cleaning a lot here, but the whole goal is, how do I not have to go back and do this window a second or third time because I missed glue that was already there that I should have taken off. So that's how I do a side window removal. Get yourself a steam gun. Just make sure you got plenty of razor blades, and then just be a little bit more mindful, be more tedious, and just inspect your window. So if you get any questions, make sure to leave them in the comments below. Hope this video helped.